Hi, we're the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation Scope team. I'm Gwen, this is Stephen, Mika, Mary, and Claire, and we're excited to talk to you about the work we've been doing this year.
So as we all know, everybody poops. In the US, you flush it down the toilet, and you don't have to think about it again. That's not true for most of the world. In much of Africa and Southeast Asia, pit latrines are what people use. When the pit fills, you empty it, or just dig a new one. In some places, open defecation is the only option. Unmanaged, unsafe sanitation hurts people. Fecal sludge, the official name for this septic waste, is full of bacteria and diseases. When it contaminates water supplies, it can give people diarrheal diseases. When it ends up on the ground, it can spread hookworm. When a pit opening is large enough, a child can fall in and drown. Safe sanitation is important, and billions of people do not have it. The Gates Foundation has been working tirelessly to tackle this sanitation crisis. One of their approaches right now is developing a better way to empty pit latrines, just like this one. Right now, when a pit becomes full, a homeowner has 3 options. Hire a vacuum truck to empty it, hire a person to empty it, usually done with buckets and shovels, or dig a new pit. For a variety of reasons, none of these options are great. For example, vacuum trucks and manual emptiers usually dump their fecal sludge into the closest waterway. Gates has a different approach to emptying pit latrines that's safer. This is their current system, broken down into 4 subsystems. When a pit contains the fecal sludge, when it's full, the Gates team uses a pump to empty the pit. The truck then treats the sludge just enough to condense it, and at the end of the day, we'll bring it to a treatment center. This sounds straightforward, but how do you get the fecal sludge from the pump to the truck? What if the pit is hundreds of feet away and perhaps in a dense urban area? That's where we come in. Our goal was to solve this conveyance piece of the puzzle. How do you move fecal sludge from the pump to the truck? At an abstract level, this is our problem. The conveyance system gets fast-moving fecal sludge from the pump in a 3-inch hole and needs to move it to a 3-inch hole onto the truck. The truck can be hundreds of feet away and up to 60 feet above or below the pit. So how do we fill in the missing piece of this puzzle? We spent months studying the cultural context of pit latrines. We ideated and designed a baseline solution, a 3-inch hose set into 7 50-foot sections, and it was the best hose for the job, but it isn't perfect. It's heavy, expensive, and difficult to move. We traveled to South Africa to interview users and get on-the-ground experience and talk to sanitation experts. When we got back, we began prototyping 4 solutions to make our baseline hose better. 2 of them are very promising, and we'd like to share them with you today.
So, as Stephen mentioned, our baseline hose has 7 different sections. Each of these sections has to have a connector on either end. These connectors are heavy, expensive, and often difficult to use and pretty unintuitive. For our solution, we actually gained inspiration from a finger trap toy, which you might have used as a child. These toys, you put your finger in either end of a webbing, and then as you pull your fingers apart, the webbing gets even tighter. We applied this to a hose connector. So you have 2 sections of hose with a webbing around the outside, and as fecal sludge moves through the system, the pressure builds, and these connections grow even tighter. And then, when the system is done being used and fecal sludge exits the system, pressure is released, and this webbing becomes a lot looser, and workers are able to easily remove it from the hose. We believe that these connectors will significantly decrease the overall weight of the system and significantly decrease the cost. We also think they'll be more intuitive for workers to use, potentially decreasing our setup time. Our other solution is a hose harness. So this came about because the Gates Foundation has a requirement that our system be able to be used by 2 small individuals. We did a lot of user testing with the team and actually bought a few hose sections and moved them around outside to identify the key pain points. We identified that these hose sections were extremely heavy and difficult to maneuver. One of the main reasons being because you couldn't get a good grip on the hose. Our solution a backpack-style harness that you can see Mary modeling here. Has a tail that comes down and connects to the hose. And with this backpack-style harness, we're able to change our setup time from 30 minutes down to 7 minutes. This is an amazing time savings, and we believe that with these time savings, workers will be able to reach even more pits, meaning more people have access to safe sanitation. Oh, sorry. Oh, no, wrong way. Okay, sorry. The impact of our solution is that the Gates Foundation framework is able to be completed. Because of this, homeowners will save space because they'll be able to empty their pit latrines instead of having to build a new one. Also, pit contents will be able to be treated because they'll be transported to a treatment facility, meaning they won't be dumped into the environment, significantly decreasing on the spread of diseases. And workers will have access to safer working conditions because they'll no longer be faced with the risk of having to empty a pit manually. The next steps for our project are to continue developing these hose trap connectors. We think they're a really promising direction for the Gates Foundation to look into, but they just need significant testing. And we also want to investigate the manufacturing of the hose in-house. We think we could potentially decrease the cost of this hose by 50%. And then also determine the details of our harness manufacturing. We think these harnesses are almost ready to go to market, and we want to get them in people's hands as soon as possible. Finally, we'd like to thank the Gates Foundation for all of their support this past year and all of our liaisons through that. Thank you.